Welcome to the retirement rabbit hole. Um, Today, I'm going to talk about the topic that's on the top of everybody's mind. Is Social Security a good investment? Okay, maybe it's only on the top of my mind. Um, so basically, by that, what I mean is that if you were handed the money that put into the program along with the employer contributions or employer contributions, and invested it yourself, would you be better off? Um, there's Social Security is a big topic, and there's all kinds of things that could be discussed. Lots of controversial things. I'll stay away from all of those types of things, and basically, I'm just trying to answer mostly to satisfy myself. Um, if I could actually manage the money better than the Social Security Administration. So again, I don't want to get into anything too controversial, but and as soon as somebody says "but," just ignore everything they said before that. I thought if the idea of you investing the money versus having the Social Security Administration invest it is kind of related to the 401k and how well that's working out as a good retirement vehicle. And so I, essentially 401ks have been great for someone who's disciplined, got in early, stayed invested and invested well, and never actually touched their money. Um, but there's obviously a lot of people that don't fall into that group. So basically, if we handed everybody the money that's going into Social Security right now and said, have at it, we'd probably get a similar distribution out of that. So there's a potential problem right off the bat. But let's suppose that that doesn't exist or there's some plan that resolves those types of issues. So we'll go back to the original question. Would we be better off if we were directing the funds versus letting the SSA direct the funds? So in order to actually take a look at that, here's essentially what I did. I went out to ssa.gov and grabbed my earnings history from the site. So you can go partway down the main page. There's a link that you can get to that will take you to the list of your earnings by year. So I select the two columns for year in Social Security earnings data, and then copy those and then drop them into a spreadsheet to get started. And then I use the figures for payroll tax rates for each given year to determine how much I paid and how much the employer paid for each year. Right now, it's 6.2% for both the employee and the employer, but I'm old enough that I go back to when those numbers were different. So I needed to grab those rates. And the picture I'm showing you, there's a link in the description that you could get that. It's also off of the ssa.gov site. And it's kind of interesting to see how the rates changed over the years. So anyway, I manually copied those into my spreadsheet, doubled them because it's the same amount for the employer and the employee, and then multiplied those by the earnings that I had each year. So that basically gave me the amount of money that I could invest. 50% of it's mine, 50% is the employer. So then, as a comparison standpoint, I decided I'd look at two different options. and as far as how I was going to invest that money every year. The first one was a CD. Let's go with a safe option. And I said I'll take a look at what the 1 year CD rates were in all those years, and assume that I just compounded my money and just kept buying new 1 year CDs every year. The second one is the S&P 500, and so I would just invest my money into the S&P 500 every year and just let it roll. So I included some links in the description for both the CD rates and the S&P returns. The CD rates were a little harder to find. I could only find things going back to 1984. I'm sure they exist out there somewhere, but I didn't have much success getting them. The S&P return, the site that I gave you was nice because it actually gave me a spreadsheet that I could just grab the data right out of. So part of the question is, how well could I even have invested in those two things, CDs and the S&P 500, and maybe not, but again, we'll assume that if we were to put together a site that allowed me to do this, I could invest every dollar I had in one or the other. Typically, banks might charge you some fees. Investment broker, especially back in the day, would be fairly expensive. They generally had minimums, all those types of things. So there's some complications to try to actually do that. But again, for this exercise, I just went with the idea that I could do that, and I could just put in the dollars that I was making and invest them in either the CD or the S&P. So essentially, I ran that calculation over the course of my retirement, or actually my working time frame, right up till my full retirement age. And then as a comparison, I actually, well, in order to compare it to my Social Security amount that I could receive on an annual basis, I used the 4% rule, and said I could, at least in year one, I could grab 4% of the funds that I had saved up in my Social Security account, my Social Security account versus the government Social Security account, and see how that compared to the first year's worth of Social Security payments that they're going to give me. So, and again, I guess I looked at a couple of other options. The 4% rule seemed like the simplest thing to take a look at. I was looking at probably the most one-for-one comparison. The best comparison might have been to look at an inflation-adjusted annuity, since Social Security does inflation adjusting every year as a comparison, but I didn't have a good place that I could find any rates, so I opted to just stick with the 4% rule. So at this point, I'm sure you're wondering what I came up with, and I'm not really comfortable sharing my actual numbers, but I can give you some basic basic comparisons of how it ended up. In raw dollar amounts, not surprisingly, investing in the S&P did better than investing in CDs. And that, if I had gone with the S&P, it would have given me six times the amount of money versus just putting it in the CDs. And had I gone with just investing in CDs over that time frame, I would get only 46% of what Social Security is going to pay me. And had I been clairvoyant enough and decided to invest in the S&P, I would have gotten 2.5 times what I'm going to get for Social Security. So an actual dollar example of that is if my Social Security was going to pay me $1,000 a month, I would have with the CD amount that I had, I would be able to pay myself $460 a month, and with the S&P example, I would have been able to pay myself $2,500 a month. So back to what I was really trying to get to here, is it a good investment? Am I okay with how the Social Security Administration is dealing with it? Short answer, yes. Yeah, I'd say for me, I feel like it's a pretty good deal. Obviously, if I could have managed to actually jump in and stay with the S&P 500, and over the long haul, it would be great to get 2.5 times what I'm currently going to get. But my chances of doing that or having done that are probably pretty low. For one thing, and I'll show you it here. The first 2 years that I was working, starting in 1973, the S&P lost money both of those years. It was down 17% the first year and 29% the second year. I could pretty much guarantee that after that I was done with the S&P had I even gone that way. And you combine that with the fact that CD rates in the 70s and early 80s were in the teens, it would be really hard to decide to jump into the stock market and do anything with that money, especially knowing it's something I'm going to have to live with when I actually retire. Now who knows exactly what I might have done. Maybe once CD rates dropped to like a stone, like they eventually did, I might have moved over and done some things. But the way I see it, it's unlikely I would have, certainly unlikely I would have more than doubled the amount that I'm getting, and there's a decent chance I would have had less had I had the money to invest on my own. So again, that said, I guess I see it as a halfway decent deal, a pretty good deal, and so I feel better having gone through the exercise of whether I'm going to get my value out of the Social Security or not. Again, not knowing for sure how things are going to turn out in the future here, but at least right now I feel like I'm going to do okay with that. And there are several other things that just complicate even trying to do a comparison like this, like the fact that you get spousal benefits, there's disability benefits, there's the fact that Social Security does a cost of living adjustment is kind of a nice thing. I mean, I guess on the flip side, you have to look at the fact that if you die early, you don't get any of that Social Security money, versus if you had the money and you died early, well, you wouldn't get the benefit from it, but someone else would. There's always the thing, the nice thing is the Social Security, again, assuming things don't get screwed up in the future, Social Security is always going to be there and keep paying you, and that 4% rule doesn't completely eliminate the possibility of running out of money. It suggests that you're probably good, but you have to count on the markets kind of behaving more like they have historically and who knows how the future is going to work out. So I guess the last thing I'll just talk about here is that obviously this evaluation is specific to my numbers. So, you could get very different results if you took a look at it yourself, which I highly suggest, just to make make you feel better, or maybe worse about the situation. Um, the exact timing on mine, when I started, the amount of money I made year to year, which was never, rarely the same number from year to year, so it was all over the place. So your distribution of your earnings might affect things. Where you wind up on the payment curve, which is Social Security is on a progressive payment curve. So if the lower your earnings are, the higher percentage they actually pay out. So it would be likely even a bigger benefit of having Social Security fund your retirement for you. So anyway, if you haven't already gone out to ssa.gov and signed up, you really should. There's certainly, you can at least review your earnings record and make sure they have that right. It'll give you estimates on what you will get or likely should get in your payments. If you're you can you can check out how much your spouse will get. There's a lot of different things that are out there. And so I think if you haven't gone there, go there. So it'll give you a heads up on what you're looking at from a Social Security standpoint when you retire. So I guess that's pretty much it. Thanks for watching. And as always, if you enjoyed this, you can click the like button. If you want to see more, click subscribe. If I was unclear about anything, or if there's anything else you'd like to know about the approach I took, or anything about Social Security in general, I can at least let you know what I've found so far. If you want to make suggestions for any other topics you'd like to see, drop a comment. And in any case, I'll be putting out more content soon, and until then, enjoy your day.